Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. It's from Canto 3, Chapter 1, and this morning we're doing text 9. So without further ado, we'll start the class. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadari, Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadari, Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadari Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Jayam Vishnupad Paramhansa Privajikacharya Dhṛtarāṣṭra Srimadi's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Privajikacharya Dhṛtarāṣṭra Srimadi's Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavin Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Swami Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Ganga Mayi Ki Jai Jamuna Mayi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Tamam Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prashaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Niti Namini Namaste Krishna Paraya Prabhupada Siddharthani Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namini Narayana Namaskritya Narom Chaivam Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Gujirayat Nashta Prayesu Abhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyutamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. This morning we're reading from Canto 3, which is entitled The Status Quo, Chapter 1, Questions by Vidura, Text 9. Yadā pārtha-prahitaḥ sabhāyāṁ jagad-gurur yaru jagada kṛṣṇa tāni puṁsām amṛtāyanāni rājoru mene kṣata-puṇya-leśaḥ yadā pārtha-prahitaḥ sabhāyāṁ jagad-gurur yāni jagada kṛṣṇa tāni puṁsām amṛtāyanāni rājoru mene kṣata-puṇya-leśaḥ yadā pārtha-prahitaḥ sabhāyāṁ jagad-gurur yāni jagāda kṛṣṇa tāni puṁsām amṛtāyanāni rājoru mene kṣata-puṇya-leśaḥ. Please chant.
yadā pārtha-prahitaḥ sabhāyāṁ jagad-gurur yāni jagad-kṛṣṇa tāni puṁsām amṛtāyanāni rājoru mene kṣata-puṇya-leśaḥ. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
yadā pārtha-prahitaḥ sabhāyāṁ jagad-gurur yāni jagāda kṛṣṇa tāni puṁsām amṛtāyanāni rājoru mene kṣata-puṇya-leśaḥ. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
yadā pārtha-prahitaḥ sabhāyāṁ jagad-gurur yāni jagāda kṛṣṇa tāni puṁsām amṛtāyanāni rājoru mene kṣata-puṇya-leśaḥ. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? We do word for word. Yadā, when. Kya, also. Pārtha-prahitaḥ, being advised by Arjuna. Sabhāyāṁ, in the assembly. Jagad-gurur, the teacher of the world. Yāni, those. Jagāda, went. Kṛṣṇa, Lord Kṛṣṇa. Na, never. Tāni, such words. Puṁsām, of all men of sense. amṛtāyanāni, as good as nectar. Raja, the king, Dhṛtarāṣṭra or Duryodhana. Uru, very important. Mene, did consider. Shata, dwindling. Puṇya-leśaḥ, fragment of pious acts. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Lord Kṛṣṇa was sent by Arjuna into the assembly as the spiritual master of the whole world. And although his words were heard by some like Bhīṣma as pure nectar, it was not so for the others who were completely bereft of the last farthing of past pious works. The king, Dhṛtarāṣṭra or Duryodhana, did not take the words of Lord Kṛṣṇa very seriously. Report by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Kṛṣṇa, who is the spiritual master of the entire universe, accepted the duty of a messenger and, deputed by Arjuna, went to the assembly of King Dhṛtarāṣṭra on a peace mission. Kṛṣṇa is everyone's Lord, yet because he was a transcendental friend of Arjuna, he gladly accepted the role of messenger, exactly like an ordinary friend. That is the beauty of the Lord's behavior with his pure devotees. He reached the assembly and spoke about peace, and the message was relished by Bhīṣma and other great leaders because it was spoken by the Lord himself. But due to the exhaustion of the pious results of their past deeds, Duryodhana, or his father Dhṛtarāṣṭra, did not take the message very seriously. That is the way of persons who have no credit of pious deeds. By past pious deeds, one may become a king of a country, but because the results of the pious acts of Duryodhana and company were dwindling, it became evident from their actions that they were sure to lose the kingdom to the Pandavas. The message of Godhead is always like nectar to the devotees, but it is just the opposite to the non-devotees. Sugar candy is always sweet to a healthy man, but it tastes very bitter to persons suffering from jaundice. Oma Ginati Mirandasya Gyana Ganashalakaya Chakshu Umritam Jena Taspai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manopristam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadatikam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Peshnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Chatarine. Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gurachache Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, the translation again, Canto 3, Chapter 1, Text 9. Lord Kṛṣṇa was sent by Arjuna into the assembly as the spiritual master of the whole world. And although his words were heard by some, like Bhīṣma, as pure nectar, it was not so for the others, who were completely bereft of the last farthing of past pious works. The king Dhṛtarāṣṭra of Duryodhana did not take the words of Lord Kṛṣṇa very seriously. So this is, as the chapter says, questions by Vidura. So Maitreya Muni is answering questions. The first question by Vidura being about the Pandavas, about the situation in Hastinapur. Actually, questions have been asked prior to that, because Srimad Bhagavatam, sometimes we put it in context, is questions asked by questions, and the answers are questions from other, entities. Maharaj Pariksit is being spoken to by Shukadeva Goswami. Maitreya Muni is answering Vidura's questions. So that's inside the speech or what's being talked to Maharaj Pariksit by Shukadeva Goswami. So sometimes it's not even as important to talk about who's talking to who or which conversation is inside, which conversation which is inside another conversation. But the relevant thing is really about what's being talked about. And here, a part of the Mahabharata is being described. The last effort to try to avert war is what's being described here. The last effort. When Kṛṣṇa himself went, Arjuna requested Kṛṣṇa to go. And Kṛṣṇa decided to go. Kṛṣṇa decided to go because Kṛṣṇa and Arjuna had a relationship of friendship. So in that sense, Kṛṣṇa was doing Arjuna a favor by going there, because prior to that, Maharaj Yudhishthira had sent the high priest to go represent him. So a high priest from Punjab to go represent him and talk to the king. But he got nowhere because Duryodhana was interrupting. Even when Dhṛtarāṣṭra, the king, was there and questions were being asked to the king, Duryodhana still thought that he had a right. He was a favorite of his father and he could just speak whenever he wanted to. So that message got nowhere. That meeting got nowhere. And now Kṛṣṇa had decided to go as a peacemaker. Maharani Draupadi was against the idea because he had been insulted by both Duryodhana and his brother Bhīṣma. So he wanted them punished. And she felt that if the war did not happen because the Kauravas wanted war, then maybe she won't get she wanted to avenge Duryodhana and Bhīṣma, want them punished. But for every horrible act, unless a person is under the protection of Kṛṣṇa and can realize their faults and ask for forgiveness, there will be some reaction to it, reaction to that sin. And whichever way Draupadi was thinking, in Krishna's mind, there was going to be one way or the other punishment coming to the Kauravas. They were the ones that were talking about war. They were the ones preparing for war. They were the ones that thought that they had the upper hand because Drona and Bhīṣma would fight for them if it came down to a war. And Bhīṣma was not only very experienced, he had fought Parashuram and Parashuram, spiritual master, was even impressed with him. So from the material standpoint, Duryodhana thought he could never lose. But Duryodhana, as what says here, when people lose their pious credits, they become short-sighted. In the Virat war, Arjuna was there, dressed as Brihanala, the eunuch. And the same people that Duryodhana was counting on, Bhīṣma, Drona, Karna, they were all there. Duryodhana, they were all there. And they fought one person, Arjuna, and still Arjuna was able to defeat them. Arjuna was able to defeat them. So now a little common sense could have told Duryodhana, whatever plans you're making, Arjuna alone has shown what he can do in the face of all of you, including his own teacher, Dronacharya. I should say their teacher, because Drona taught both Pandavas and Kauravas. Still, when people lose their pious credits, it affects their sense of reasoning too. Now, this is not for Duryodhana only. It is a warning to us, the way Duryodhana is acting, that we should be very careful not to squander our little credits that we have by behaving improperly or negatively. When we are in the assembly of devotees, it is nice to associate with devotees. And the nice part means wonderful conversations and people being very happy with each other. That's on the one hand. But every devotee that's been in devotion service for a few decades would know this. Through all of that wonderful discussions, there always should be that little voice at the back of the mind that says, be careful, be careful, be careful. The relationship has to stay at least cordial the whole time. Sometimes some things would be mentioned that you may not agree with. And you should never let your emotions take over, especially the emotion of anger, and ruin the conversation. You would not always agree with what everybody would say. You would not always agree with management. But still, how you approach things and the amount of patience that you exercise makes all the difference in the world, in the relationship. We want to grow and get purified as devotees. So these things have become very, very, very important, and they will stay like that. In the spiritual world, that just comes naturally because everybody is pure. But here, we have been, here the false ego is there, and the false ego has actually put us in so many ways of thinking that are not healthy. So we're going through the process of purification. And in that, many situations will come up. Krishna uses Maya to bring up many situations for us to learn from it so that we become, after we learn, better people and have a better outlook when it comes to relating. Remember, in the spiritual world, we're going to be relating to a whole bunch of pure living entities of the Lord who love Krishna like anything. That's who will be around. Now we're not around them. So what do? Well, devotees are around us and we are around them. So devotees are our practice for relating ultimately in the spiritual world. What we do now in relation to devotees is counted as what's going to happen if we're allowed in the spiritual world, if Krishna permits us to go. So if it is not positive, then Krishna will say, we're not ready. And even though it is said that, yes, we chant and we obey the 4 regulative principles, we can go back to the spiritual world. But there's always a third point. If we obey the regulative principles, if we chant at least a minimum of 16 rounds of japa steadily, and then the third point, if we don't offend other devotees, then we have a chance of going back. Actually, it's not a question of offending other devotees. Everybody is a devotee. So everybody in the world is a devotee. They will define it a little later, not to get off this point. So we have to not be offensive. We shouldn't be offensive to anyone. Everyone is a devotee. But there are 2 classes of devotees. The people in the world are devotees who, one, know and have agreed and want to be devotees, surrender to Krishna. And there's the others, unfortunately, at this point, they are the majority, who don't want to submit to Krishna. In other words, there are good devotees and bad people. Krishna says, not Krishna, Srila Prabhupada says, if you ask anyone, sir, do you know Krishna? And if they say no, then that person has some demonic tendencies. It will be there for sure. Srila Prabhupada put it directly. I'm just kind of sugarcoating it a little bit. Sir, do you know Krishna? No. If he responds no, then Srila Prabhupada says the person is a demon. Everybody knows about Krishna. There are some who will pay attention, find out more about him, find out what he says, and go to the extent of obeying what he says. Those people are very fortunate. That's who we call devotees, or those who are undergoing purification in order to be fully devoted servants of the Lord. That's the situation that we're in. So in this text here, it is described, text 9 of Canto 3, chapter 1. Lord Kṛṣṇa was sent by Arjuna. Lord Kṛṣṇa was sent by Arjuna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the most superior. Nobody's at his level. And here it is described that he is the spiritual master of the entire universe. He gave the Vedas to Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma received the Vedas through the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the instructing Supreme Personality of Godhead, the instructing master, spiritual master for Brahma, is the Lord himself. But because there is a relationship, a sweet, loving relationship between him and Arjuna, as a friend, a relationship which we also can get into with the Lord, depending on the extent to which we endeavor to get purified. Arjuna sent Kṛṣṇa to Dhṛtarāṣṭra's palace, Dhṛtarāṣṭra's court. Bhīṣma was going to be there, Drona was going to be there, and as it's described here, Duryodhana and Dhṛtarāṣṭra did not take the words of the Lord Kṛṣṇa, very seriously. Why? Because Duryodhana and Dhṛtarāṣṭra had almost depleted all the results of their pious works. They had some pious work previously. Otherwise, they could never be prince and king and so on. Otherwise, they couldn't have got that position. That's from good karma. But because they were acting evil, And the evil point was from one situation only. Envy. Envy. Before Duryodhana was born, Dhṛtarāṣṭra was already envious of his brother Pandu because he was born first. But because he was born blind, then they bypassed him. He was bypassed, and his younger brother Pandu got to be the king. Dhṛtarāṣṭra didn't like that. But he also understood that a blind king cannot even lead an army to war. He'll be the first casualty because he can't see anything. And so it would not be practical for him to be king. Therefore, Bhīṣma made the right decision to have his younger brother, the next one, Pandu, be the king. Well, if Pandu has become king, and then the way the whole kingship and the transfer of it goes, then the first son becomes the crown prince of the king. The king is Pandu. Therefore, Yudhishthira is automatically the next person to train and to prepare to be the next king. So it was obvious Yudhishthira should be crown prince. But Duryodhana was thinking just like his father. I am the firstborn. This is Dhṛtarāṣṭra. I'm the firstborn. Therefore, I should have been given the reins, the kingdom to rule. And I've been bypassed because I was blind. But my son is not blind. So why not him? He still wants to claim, not understanding. He wants to claim the rights to the throne, not understanding that once the kingship or the rulership has been given to another person, then that person is king, and that's that. You do not change anything about it. The thing goes, the rest of the princes, they go from that line down. So Pandavas had the right, and not the Kauravas. Yet, because of evil deeds, Duryodhana and Dhṛtarāṣṭra had exhausted their pious credits. Therefore, even when the Supreme Personality of Godhead was in front of them, still, they weren't hearing him. Now, Krishna accepted the role of messenger, as Srila Prabhupada describes in the purport, exactly like an ordinary friend. Now, Krishna has opulences, 6 opulences, and one of them is renunciation. The way, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God, he owns everything. And so his opulence of renunciation is exhibited when he takes menial roles. This is how renunciation for Krishna is shown by him. When he takes a menial service, just like when he became the chariot driver for Arjuna, or when the Rajasuya sacrifice was being done in Indraprastha by Maharaj Yudhishthira. Roles were given to different people for the whole function, the whole program. And Krishna was washing the feet of those who were coming to the program. Again, this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, washing the feet of sadhus who were coming. It's menial. And that is how Krishna exhibits his opulence of renunciation. Krishna loves his devotees very much. And therefore, when we love Krishna, we learn to love Krishna, our life will be lives will be very blissful. Even while we're here in the material world, we'll see the difference. The more we give our hearts to Krishna. And how do we do that? We do that by being willing, very willing to involve ourselves in devotional service. And when we get service, we should consider ourselves fortunate, lucky, and we should be very happy to take on that service. That's the attitude that we should apply to devotional service. Krishna knows that our senses are not perfect. We're using this material body and it can only do so much. But the mind is always there. And that mind is the one that rules the intention behind our service, the intention. And the intention is what Krishna watches for. And if our intention is very genuine, and if our intention is an open-hearted type of intention in doing the service, then Krishna sees it as the person is trying to serve me to come to me open-heartedly, which means the person is developing love for me. And so the Lord sees it that way. And the Lord, whatever little that we are developing, he'll pull it. And the spiritual master will also pull it. Pull it means that he will encourage for more of that to be done. Because ultimately we'll get to the point of being loving to Krishna the way the pure devotees are towards Krishna. Purity is there for everyone. It's not for one set of people or only those that came from the spiritual world. Even though we are devotees here in the material world and we're contaminated because of our thoughts that are negative, we have a lower nature. Still, if we go through the process of anattaniviti, taking off those unwanted processes that we involve ourselves in, unwanted desires that we involve ourselves in, then we will also grow to the point where Krishna will be most happy to relate to us. Every single soul has a special relationship with Krishna. Every single soul has a special relationship with Krishna. In Golok Vrindavan, the relationships, the mellows can be classified. The 5 main classifications are there. Santaras, neutrality, Dasyaras, servant, Sakyaras, friend, Vatsalyaras, parental, and Madhuryaras, conjugal relationship. That's there, but those are the broad classes. Within that, one may belong to one of those. A person may belong to one of those, but the way they relate to Krishna is not the same as the way Krishna relates to other friends. They have special relationship, and that is determined by the Lord himself. Srila Prabhupada described the example of being a friend, as Arjuna was a friend to Krishna. We have friends here in this material world, and we value our friendship with our friends. We do. But the friendship with Krishna is a whole different level, much higher. In that the friendship in the material world can sometimes be marred, or we can sometimes may face some things where we disagree, and our friend will cease to be a friend at least for a period of time. You don't agree on certain things. So then there's some strain. For Krishna, that never happens. For Krishna, that never happens. The relationship is perfect. The friendship is perfect. The only situation where the friends of Krishna get in anxiety is when Krishna himself is not around. When he's not around and they are missing him, then they get in anxiety. But relating to Krishna and friendship, and that's just one of the rasas, is perfect the whole time because of who Krishna is. So, Srila Prabhupada describes it, that is the beauty of the Lord's behavior with his pure devotees. And that we should also be striving for that. The message left by Krishna or said by Krishna in Dhṛtarāṣṭra's court was like nectar to the pure devotees of the Lord, to Bhīṣma and the other great leaders. Hearing Krishna, seeing Krishna was very, 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 very wonderful to the pure devotees. But Dhṛtarāṣṭra and Duryodhana had practically exhausted all the pious results of the past deeds. Therefore, they did not take the message of Krishna very seriously. What it tells us is that we have to be careful not to do negative things, because what happens is after that, doing it for a while, our devotional service attitude is going to be affected. It is going to be seriously affected. And even though sometimes we don't say anything, we see what's going on. Now we're bringing it back down to us and the temple and how we relate. The more offenses that we make, the weaker our devotional creeper becomes. The more offenses that we make. And the better we relate to devotees, the stronger our devotional creeper becomes. So basically, it's a no-brainer. What choice should we make? The choice that increases or strengthens our devotional creeper. We have to be nice to everybody, even the smallest one among us that you can communicate with. You have to be nice to them. Even if you have to correct them on certain things and you correct them even firmly, you still should show love to them. My spiritual master, actually, Bhakti Maharaj warned us that when we're relating to those who are younger than us, that we should, if it comes to situations where we have to make some correction, we should make the correction. But it shouldn't be a situation where we always, every time we speak up, we're correcting. After a while, the person will say, this particular people, he doesn't like me. So all he says about me are negative things. So he says, Bhakti Maharaj said, you have to show love too, so that the person does not see you as one who, whenever he sees you, you have to take cover and go somewhere else, because if he opens his mouth or she opens her mouth, she's going to say something negative. Our relationships are very, very important. This is where we're practicing. This is where the practice is taking place for what's going to happen in the spiritual world. So Srila Prabhupada says, that's the way of persons who have no credit of pious deeds, referring to Dhṛtarāṣṭra and Duryodhana. By past pious deeds, just like they went through, the same Duryodhana and Dhṛtarāṣṭra, one may become a king or even a prince in a country, but in that particular lifetime, Duryodhana and Dhṛtarāṣṭra were doing negative things, and therefore the pious acts and the results of it were dwindling. We're going down. We're going down. And then it gets to a point where even the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself has come and suggested a very, very, very compromised situation for the Pandavas. Let's give them 5 villages. 5 villages. Take the whole wonderful in the past that's been put together. Take it. Take the Hastinapur, but give only 5 villages, because being in a Kshatriya position, Kshatriyas don't have to be employed like Shudras. They have to have some place that they actually they would do the administration for. 5 villages, and take the whole rest of this planet. And because the spiritual credits have been exhausted by Duryodhana, he could not see the advantage, overwhelming advantage that's been given to them. So we got to be very careful not to be overly greedy and envious and succumb to the angry emotion. That's not good at all. It won't help us. It will not help us. It seems very simple, but how sometimes it crops up, it takes us by surprise. The next thing we know, something is coming up that is negative. Envy that is coming up that is negative. Envy crops up every now and then in everyone's mind. What do? Immediately you see that something is making you uncomfortable because you're comparing yourself to someone else and you're feeling that, oh, they are in a better position than me. That is envy. And if that comes up, we begin to pray immediately. Lord, take this emotions, this negative emotions from me immediately. Immediately. Let me be happy to assist this particular devotee. Never allow envy to bubble up. This is what Duryodhana allowed, And in the end, in the Kurukshetra war, what happened? He died a very disgraceful death. So even for us, of course, in the case of Duryodhana, and they had a war and so on, so it may be extreme. We might think that we'll never be involved in this war, in any war. The earth is the earth, or there are wars going on right now. So because of our own pious credits and the Lord being protective of us, so we're in a place where war is not going on, but it's going on, raging in other parts of this same planet. That should warn us that this is no place to try to, try to get very, very, very settled in. We should be thinking all the time in terms of going back, preparing to go back to Godhead. That's where you won't see any wars. But here in the material world, even in the heavenly planets, there are wars. There are wars. Indra has to fight wars. And he fights against the Rakshas and Rakshasas. They are in the lower planets, lower part of the universal of the universe, but they do attack those in the higher planets. They do attack them. Wars happen. Not very frequently, but it does happen. One war is bad enough because so many people get killed and so much inconvenience happens. Even in the heavenly planets, it happens. So this is no place to stay. But the pure devotees of the Lord, the message from the Lord is like nectar to them. And it is also corroborated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, opulence of the absolute. And text 9. Machita magata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayanta jamanityam tushanticha romanticha. The translation is, Krishna is saying, the thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service. And they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. This is what Bhīṣma is like, for example, or the Pandavas are like. They are always thinking about Krishna. And thoughts have form. Thoughts carry to the person who you're thinking about. And we've seen this in real life. Sometimes you're thinking about someone, and then there's a knock on the door. And you open the door, and that person you were thinking of is the one that's standing there. So how does that happen? Maguma Maharaj explained this. So the person that's coming to visit, they know they're coming to visit you. And so as they're coming, driving, or maybe they park the car and they're walking towards your residence, they're thinking about you. And since thoughts have formed, the thoughts travel. And when they come to you, you pick it up like a receptor. And then your own mind starts thinking about the person. But the one that's coming is actually projecting that thought about you because they're coming to visit you the whole time. Every step that they take, they're taking in order to come close to your residence. Therefore, they're thinking about you the whole time. So when they send those thoughts, then you pick it up and you start thinking about them. By the time they reach the door, you see you are thinking about them and here they are. Or sometimes, and I've seen that it happens to everybody if you're attentive about that. You may be looking at someone and you look at them and you're thinking about them, you're looking at them intently, and all of a sudden that person turns and looks right at you, turns their head, and immediately, of all the people that are gathered, they look at you. Why? Because you are thinking about them and the thoughts were picked up by that person. And so the person thought about you, turned around, and somehow they just turned their face and their eyes right to where you were. It's funny how that works, but it is true. It works like that. So pure devotees whose characteristics are mentioned, those, who think about the Lord the whole time, they engage themselves fully in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. If you read Chaitanya Bhagavat or Chaitanya Charitamrita, All that the devotees of Lord Chaitanya think about is associating with him every day. That is the primary thing that they always think about, more than anything else for their own material lives, what to do about their material lives. They're thinking about associating with the Lord, going with the Lord, being with the Lord, serving the Lord, doing what the Lord wants them to do. And the Lord wanted to spread Krishna consciousness. This is Lord Chaitanya. So we should be about that too, while we're doing whatever it is that we do materially to keep this body going. The talks of the pure devotees are on transcendental subjects. Devotees of the Supreme Lord are doing this, thinking about the Lord 24 hours daily. 24 hours means that even when we're going to sleep, we can read something, a book, or we can hear something about the Lord's pastimes before we go to sleep. Then the mind is turned towards the Lord while we sleep. So the hearts and souls are constantly, for these pure devotees, submerged in Krishna. And they take pleasure in discussing him with other devotees. And that's what we should be about. So when we are having our conversations, say we have a Sunday program, and at the end of the Sunday program, we go downstairs and we're having prasadam, and we're talking with each other, and we're in a very good mood because prasadam puts us in a good mood, especially when it's very tasty. But we're talking with each other, and this is the time because nobody's preaching, so now we don't have to be listening to like it is in the temple room, but in the prasadam hall. Everything that we talk about, even if there are some things to do with our material life, we should always try to bring Krishna into the center of the conversation. That way, then we remind each other about Krishna. And from turning the conversation, angling it towards Krishna, the conversation will take on its own wonderful feeling. It's just a question of doing it. It's just a question of doing it. That way we remind each other about Krishna. And believe me, even if the conversation that we're doing is a conversation we're happy to talk about, but it's material, if we bring Krishna into it, the mood of that conversation goes even higher and gives us greater pleasure. That's how it works. That's why the pure devotees get the greatest pleasure, because they are always talking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then, of course, the service also becomes much better, because when we talk about the Lord, we love the Lord, we chant the holy Lord, the holy name of the Lord, then the attitude towards service gets very, very much improved. And that's what Krishna is looking for. Not the performance of the service so much, but the attitude behind the performance. What we're thinking of when we're performing the Lord. I'm doing this to satisfy the Lord's senses. I'm doing this because I want the Lord to be happy to do it, happy to receive it, the service. That should be our attitude towards devotional service in everything that we do. And speaking about devotional service, we should never think that, oh, this other devotee has gotten a more prestigious type of service. See, he's on the altar doing this and this, and I'm not doing those things. All I'm doing is just scrubbing the bathroom and scrubbing and cleaning the floor and wiping the benches and the tables. Well, I've got news for you. Krishna does not look at Pujari's work as better than those who clean downstairs the tables of the devotees who sit on to have prasadam. It is all the same. In Krishna's eyes, Krishna is absolute. So devotional service in any kind of way, whatever the type of devotional service is, gets the same type of response from the Lord. So our service of cleaning is as good as the service of the pujari. And this is not me saying it. There's a recorded lecture by Srila Prabhupada. He made it clear that all services are looked at as important and at the same level. There may be variations in it, but it is at the same level the way Krishna sees it. Why? Because it's the love behind it. It is the love behind the service that Krishna is looking, the intent. Hmm? So we should always be ready to plunge ourselves into service head first, as they say in America, head first. Chant the holy name of the Lord with determination, with focus, and if we need help because our mind roams a little bit, and that happens to a whole lot of people, mind tends to roam, then have a picture of a spiritual master, or have a picture of Srila Prabhupada, or have a picture of Radha Krishna, or if you have deities, go sit in front of them and chant there. Chant, sometimes we hearing, lower the volume of Srila Prabhupada's chanting on YouTube, so that as you're chanting, you're also hearing. You're hearing yours and you're hearing the chanting from the pure devotee. And of course, it's very important to purify the chanting by chanting the Panchatattva mantra. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Very important to chant that along with the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada describes devotional service that initially one gets, that's the preliminary stage of devotional service. Devotees relish pleasure from the service itself. We should feel lucky and fortunate to get to do the service. And in the mature stage, when a person is actually connecting, from now he's gone from Baba platform, the beginning feelings of love from the Lord, and is growing. Now, devotional service is done because the person is situated in the love of God. That's where we want to be. It is good in the preliminary stage when we're doing devotional service to like doing the devotional service. That's very important. That's how it starts. But then it has to grow to the point where you do the service because I love Krishna and I want to make Krishna happy. In our own, last point I want to make, in our own relationship with each other as friends, we do things, we give gifts to our friends, not because we want them to pay us or we want to we expect something from them later. No, we don't think about any of that. We give just because we know the person is going to be happy to receive a gift, and we want to make them happy. And that's why we serve. Serve them like that. That is the attitude towards service at a higher level. If you really serve like that, we serve because Krishna will be happy. Krishna will be happy with me, and that's why I do the service. So that's where we should shoot for. And talk about the Lord as we talked about it to summarize. Be careful to guard against negativity because it can deplete mentally our attitude towards service. And then we won't be so, it's just sad sometimes. I've seen that, we won't mention any names, but because some people haven't taken Krishna consciousness seriously, they're not trained properly, and still they come around and their attitude to service actually is very bad because they don't realize that some of the attitudes are actually quite negative and it's affecting their connection to service. It's become watered down. You should never be in that position because if you water down service, you will never love Krishna. You can pretend all you want, but you won't. You won't develop love for Krishna. It won't happen. It won't happen. So the connection is devotional service. And as Srila Prabhupada said, preliminary stage, we relish the pleasure from the service itself. But we should get to the stage where we're just doing the service because we know the Lord will be happy with us. Chant steadily, and Krishna would allow us to go back and relate to us like he's relating to Arjuna. Arjuna is not unique. Everybody can relate to Krishna like that if we open our hearts. Arjuna is an example for us. It's an example for us, but everybody can relate. in different rasas. He was in a friendship relationship, but everybody can be in different relationships with wonderful love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead if we strive to grow and make that priority in our life. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So thank you for coming on this morning. And this is the time to unmute yourself if you have questions, or if you want to make some comments, you can do that also. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? Okay, well, we are at the top of the hour, so if there are no questions or comments, then thank you very much for coming. Every time that we speak about the Lord, we learn something. Every time. Don't think that it's not waste of time at all. That's because we even haven't answered any question. It does not mean that you haven't heard. Everything goes to the soul. So we all benefit from it. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Hare Krishna. Panchakalpatarubhishcha kripasindhibhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you. I think the electronic